Got started this morning. I was going to put the last 4 holes in this backing plate in the case. Go there, there, and there. Now I wanted to make sure that I got that in the meatiest part there because you don't have much wiggle room. Got it all centered up like I wanted it. Started drilling and noticed shavings falling out of somewhere I didn't think they should be coming out of. And see what we got here. That channel in the bottom of the case is a lot deeper than I thought. So the hole went right down the edge and opened up into that channel. Now the hole there is still exactly where I want it. I wouldn't have really wanted to put it up any further. So it's kind of a goof, but not too bad. What I need to do, see, this is all jagged. Because I say all this stuff's 50 years old or better. But that's jagged there. I was going to trim that down anyway. You've got a broken off ear here that was for something. Same on the other side. Some of the fins are a little dinged up, which is not an issue. But what I'm going to do is I need to cut out this section here and I'll weld in that channel and just fill it. And then I've got a nice large place to bolt into, and just do the same thing on the other side. And like I said, just trim all that off. But I think what I'm going to do right now is that along this area is where your engine mounts bolt on. Since they're aluminum mounts and you can't weld the aluminum to the magnesium, they're just bolted and epoxied to the side here. This all has to be sanded smooth. So I'm going to go ahead and build the engine mounts and figure out exactly how they go on the side so I know where I need material along the side, and then clean this up and go ahead and weld it. So a little disappointing to pop through the side there, but not too big a deal, and it will be better once I get done with it. Quickly cut out and drilled one of the engine mount pieces and positioned it on there approximately where it's supposed to go. There's some overhang on the back, and of course the plate will be on there. That shows me that I can do pretty much whatever I need to on this bottom edge. So I'm going to cut this jagged piece off, smooth it out, probably trim off most of this. I definitely fill in this corner here where I need the bolt to hold the cover on. So I'll go to trimming and then do a little welding, see how that comes out. Took it outside so it didn't mess the shop up. Smooth that out, ground that edge down. Even went so far as to take out what I drilled and hit all that with a high-speed die grinder and a burr. So I'll solvent wash that. We'll see if we can't TIG in this whole area and square it off and give a real nice place to put that bolt. And made a few passes right there, built that up. Looks good. I think what I'll do is I've got to obviously smooth this area down and file it to where it's level with the rest of the case. The bottom, I'm just going to leave as is since it looks good. This up here on the side, I will just trim it back just far enough to fit in the engine mount. And that should work pretty slick. So as soon as this cools off, work that down, see if we can't put a hole back in it. There's the new hole in a much beefier location. So let's see if that'll bolt on. Worked perfect. I am going to need to trim back the side of that weld to get the mounting bracket on, but that's no problem. I decided to go ahead and just sand this whole edge down flat. It needed to be sanded anyway because this motor mount is epoxied and bolted onto the side there. And I left just a little bit of this ridge here because that's a casting line, and according to my measurements that should be exactly where the top of this goes. And then the back edge should be about 3/4 of an inch back, so it would set like that. That line up against that line at the top. And then that will drop your 3 holes in between the some of the little reinforcement dividers in the case. So bam, 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 and that could be bolted and epoxied on. Save that for later, because I don't want to epoxy anything until I am for sure completely done with welding. But we know how that needs to go in. The bolt there at the corner is good. I just need to duplicate this on the other side, weld in that area. So that's what I'm going to do now. And that will leave me with the 2 bolts here, one here, one here. And I may have to do some welding there because there's not much meat. And that corner is welded in. That should do good. Also ran a little bead down those 2 fins that were jacked up. I will take the die grinder and reshape those. Now, got one other plan, and I hope I'm not screwing up, but bolts go in here and here. Like I said before, there's not much meat, and the casting has some pretty deep pits right there that somebody has filled with some kind of epoxy. So that doesn't thrill me much either. And I hope I'm not screwing up, but I'm going to remove the pit and the epoxy with a burr and fill that in with weld. Make that a little thicker there to where I've got a little more meat to put the screw in. That was a very nasty void in the cavity. No wonder they put epoxy in it. That probably went halfway through the material there, and that would have been right where I was putting the screw. So this pretty much got no choice in fixing this right now. I think the worst that happens, I might end up melting this corner off, but I'm going to build a new plate to go on there, and I don't care if it comes out straight and attaches to the back case or what. As long as I can get a screw in each side, it's really not going to matter. We're going to try to fill that in and see what happens. Well, I'm amazed. This has been even less fun than I thought it would be. That entire corner there was just absolute crap. You try to weld on it, and I mean the junk just starts boiling up out of that pit, even though I had it ground down to what looked like good metal. So when you go to welding, I mean everything, you're trying to get the impurities out. The stuff is just falling off there because you don't have a very thick piece to weld to. So I think I have finally got it built up. I welded in this little channel here. I should be able to mow that off there. It's a little lumped up in the back to give it a little extra thickness, and cut it off here. So I think I'm going to be able to salvage it. But I got a different idea on this that would eliminate this problem. The way you're supposed to set this up, according to the plans, is the backing plate goes on, and it is level across here, and then you build this piece, and it extends up and overlaps on the bottom of your backing plate. Well, why not make this piece flush across here and then have your back plate come down? And that way you could just bolt the piece on here, and then instead of screwing into this junk casting, you could put your screws into your cover plate for the bottom. That sounds like a much better idea. Well, I guess if your case is in better shape than what this was, but who knows. But I think on the next one, that may be what I do. This is one of them deals where the second one's going to be a whole lot easier building than the first one, because I know all the tricks. But yeah, I think it's going to be all right. You know, that's still kind of hot. Man, this side here was absolute garbage too. Pit went dang near all the way through the casting. And the only thing worse than welding on a junky casting is welding on a junky casting that somebody stuffed full of epoxy. It was hard to get that crap out of there. Certainly doesn't help it weld. I'm sure that it has some pits inside there that are covered up, but I guess which is worse? A couple of small pits that has weld all around it, or one big pit packed with epoxy. So, as long as I can get that back machine down smooth, it should seal up fine. But it's like, good grief, this is junk. I really think old Leonard Don't Cut the Case Milholland, the legal guy, I think he knew what he was doing. It's like, if you not cut the case, you're a lot better off. But unfortunately on the Ultra Cruiser, if you want to use the mag, pretty much got to cut the case. So here we are. This is really making me miss my Rotax. I took the Rotax out the other day. I'm getting it ready to sell. I hadn't started it since I first put it back together, because I sold the electric starter because that wasn't going to work at all. And the case, the back housing had been kind of cobbled up where they had put the electric starter on, so I trimmed it off to save weight. There was no place to put a recoil because I was going to prop start. So I hadn't started it since the first time I rebuilt it. Well, since I was going to sell it, I figured I better put a recoil on it. I put a housing back on it, got it all set up out here in the, set up out here on the sidewalk, and fired it up. And I mean, a couple of pulls. That thing had been setting for months. A couple of pulls, fired right up, just has all kinds of power. Sounds so good. And I'm like, why am I building a Volkswagen? I'm not going to put the for sale video up until I get back from Oshkosh, but I am going to put a little teaser of that thing running at the end of this video. I think I am finally done welding for today. I've got these places built up. Nice, more chunky area to put the bolts in. Same with this corner here. And I also had fairly good luck building up those damaged fins. They're not factory fresh, but they sure look a lot better than they did. So now, the final drilling and tapping. I didn't record all the final drilling and tapping because it's just the same old stuff, but they are in there. Everything looks good, fits good now. It was a pain, but it was a necessary pain. Looks worth it. Backing plate fits nice. So now, we got all kinds of stuff to do. Got to finish working on the motor mounts. We got to build this plate here. Who knows what I'll do next? I'll figure out something because it's all got to be done. But thank you for watching. Like and subscribe so you can keep up with this build, because sooner or later this thing will fire up and run. Now bear with me, it is a little hard to start. Yeah, I was just kidding about the hard to start thing.